Hello, and thank you for joining us. My name is Brian Leitner, and I'm the Chief Practice Management Officer at Mariner Wealth Advisors. And as advisors, we act as advocates for our clients, providing them financial advice in all aspects of their lives. And in doing so, we ask some very personal questions. And today, I'm joined by Garrett Henson, and we'd like to turn the tables a bit and share with you something very personal. Gary, why are we here today?
We're here today because I wanted to tell my story. I've been very open and very public about my story, as you know. My son, after years of therapy, after interventions, after a significant amount of money, and after 9 months of rehab, passed away 1 week after leaving rehab. He overdosed on a toxic combination of Xanax, which is a benzodiazepine, and Oxycontin, which is an opioid.
Gary, we talk about this opioid crisis and so forth. I mean, how widespread is this today?
There's about 2.5 million people that are already addicted to opioids. And it's not just the people that are abusing them on the street. It's the folks that are getting them off the shelves, or they go in for off the shelf in their pantry, or they go in for a knee surgery, and they come out and they are overprescribed. And if your brain chemistry feeds off of opioids like an addict's does, you can become addicted very, very quickly. In fact, the CDC has implemented guidelines that you should only be prescribed opioids for less than 7 days. Studies show that about 500,000 kids are abusing prescription meds on a regular basis. And you hear anecdotes. In fact, I was with a father the other day that was telling me that his son, that was at a Division I Class A school, basically in the fraternity house, they had a bottle of Adderall, a bottle of opioids, and a bottle of benzodiazepines, and they could go from one to the other to the other. So when they needed to study, they'd take the Adderall. When they needed to unwind, they'd take the Xanax. And when they wanted to get looped up, they'd take the opioid. It's that prevalent, and it's very easy to get.
And what's interesting is this isn't the stereotypical bad kid, right? I mean, your son was a straight A student and still fell victim to this.
Certainly, Garrett had his issues. And I would tell the audience and our clients that what's difficult about it is you don't know when it goes from just experimentation with weed and alcohol to opioids. And at some juncture that happened with him, and I don't know when that was or how that happened, but the opioids are so addictive that once he got there, the unwind was so difficult. And again, we did 9 months of rehab. Not the right kind of rehab, but we did 9 months of rehab. And it was literally 1 week after rehab that he overdosed.
Gary, what would you tell friends, clients, family, folks that may be dealing with a similar issue with this based on your experience and what you went through?
One, I would ask them, so I've actually joined the board, as you know, of a national organization called Shatterproof. I would argue to each of them or say to each of them that they should go to www.shatterproof.org and look at the evidence-based research tabs that are in there. If your child is experimenting in this or has become addicted to it, or it may not be your child, it may be your brother, it may be your mother, if they're addicted to this, they need to seek medical-assisted treatment. Evidence-based research shows that medical-assisted treatment is really about the only way that you can overcome this. The efficacy rate of unwinding the opioid in your system is about 3 times higher if you use medical-assisted treatment than if you don't.
After his death, what did you do? What did you go through?
So Marty Bicknell, our CEO of Mariner Wealth Advisors, set up a donor advised fund, and capital poured into that. It became a significant amount of capital, and I felt a fiduciary obligation to do something with that. So I went down the path of trying to build out a charitable organization focused more on prevention. I thought about collapsing it and paying for kids to go to rehab. Rehab's so expensive. I could have paid for 4 or 5 kids to go to rehab, and that's probably about it. And the efficacy rate of rehab's so bad that at the end of the day, I don't know that that would have done much good. So I focused more on prevention.
A traumatic experience that you went through.
Right.
You found an organization.
You know, I originally went on the path to do it myself. But at the end of the day, I believe in leverage and scale, just like we do in our business, right? So I was fortunate enough to find Shatterproof.org, or Shatterproof. It's run by Gary Mendel. Gary Mendel lost his son like I lost my son. Gary happens to be the ex-president of Starwood's Lodging Trust, the ex-CEO of HEI Hotel Properties Trust, and Gary is very well connected, and he runs Shatterproof like a business. I immediately met him, connected with him, and collapsed my foundation into his.
So what is the mission? Tell us a little bit more about Shatterproof.
The mission is to really honestly build the American Heart Association for addiction, build the American Cancer Society for addiction. Addiction is the only disease in our country, and it truly is a disease. CDC has said it's a disease. It's a disease of the brain. It's the only disease in our country that doesn't have a national charity focused on that particular issue.
What else should we know about Shatterproof and what you folks are trying to bring forward?
The main thing that we're doing today is we have a focus on the opioid crisis. And the reason is because the epidemic is going geometric. Hundreds of kids, hundreds of people are dying every day due to the opioid crisis. So we're advocating for better public policy. The three things that we're advocating for are prescription drug monitoring programs throughout the country, 911 Good Samaritan laws, and better ease and better access to naloxone, which is an anti-overdose drug.
And for those that are interested in learning more about the organization, they can go to their website, shatterproof.org.
Yes. I would argue that's a really good resource center for them to learn more about the organization. And obviously, we would appreciate any support on the public policy side.
Gary, thank you very much for sharing your story today.
Thanks, Brian.